globally, not just for us, but everybody can revisit how much we're spending our time in the air and how much can we conduct virtually. So I think there will be some hard decisions we make as a business coming out of this, more for the benefit of the environment and our expense line. But I think we still want to look to engage with our teams face to face as much as possible.
Today on LawNext, my guest is Avaneesh Marwaha, the CEO of the document automation company Litera, which has been in the news for multiple reasons just this week, and which has seen a series of investments and acquisitions over the last 3 years. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. Also want to remind our regular listeners that if you like LawNext, you can help support the show by visiting our Patreon page at patreon.com/LawNext and pledging a small amount. A big shout out to our top-level Patreon supporter, John Grant, founder of Agile Attorney Consulting at agileattorney.com. Avaneesh Marwaha, welcome to LawNext.
Thanks, Bob. Excited to join you on this call today.
First of all, I just want to ask, in this difficult time, I hope you and your family are well and safe and healthy and doing okay.
Yeah, thanks. We've been fortunate. We're in Chicago. It's been, obviously a lot going on around us in the city and the country and the world, but our unit's pretty safe. We've been hunkered down at home now for 2 weeks. With the almost 2-year-old. So I think she's more anxious than we are at times to get outside and do stuff. But luckily the weather is turning for us soon here, and hopefully the same on your side. You guys are doing well and safe and healthy.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the weather to turn in the Boston area. It's sunny, but it's still been cold on and off. And you, interestingly, you were one of the first companies, I think, really to kind of react to this crisis by taking steps to both ensure that your customers continue to be served, but also that your employees and workforce are safe. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you responded and what you did?
Sure. So, as a business, we allow a pretty flexible work environment. As folks work from home. Any given day, we tend to be, we're pretty lenient on that. So we know that most of our workforce could already work from home, and because it had at some point in the last, let's say, few months. As the news was coming out in February, and our team internally, headed by my COO and head of security, they started monitoring the situation, and we started doing daily touch points on it as a small group. We started building out a little larger infrastructure to support the conversation internally, to make sure we're monitoring customer stuff. We're monitoring where our employees were traveling for work, even vacation. We started getting some data around when people were for vacations. And as we saw more and more numbers coming out, we knew work from home was going to be the eventual position that most companies would have to get to and the general market would have to get to. So we felt there's no reason to wait. If we knew that our resources were resilient and our technology could support it, let's be on the forefront of safety and security for our folks. So we made that trigger. We started doing some stuff along the way by saying we first encourage work from home. And then we made one of their offices mandatory based on what was happening around the region. And I would say within a day or two of that, 2 weeks ago, we decided to go full global work from home and get everybody set up and ready to go. For us, our employees and their families' safeties is paramount. And I often take decisions that are probably against the business that you would typically expect to defend and protect our people. And this was no different move on that part. Looking back at it now, I think we took the right steps. Our employees feel really grateful that we did it. We were hearing some good feedback from them that they feel like we've taken care of them as at the forefront, and that's what we want to be. And then secondarily, we wanted to make sure business continuity was there. So this was a good test for us to be early. We could make any changes we need to along the way and adapt while the rest of the market was going to come later. So if we were all going to work from home at the exact same time, you would inherently have greater risk associated with that. But I think by being early, we were able to hunker ourselves down first, support our customers as they went work from home. And then now we feel as a business, we're on the other side of it a little bit and getting back to being normal and being back to driving our business forward and not just reacting to the conditions around us.
Yeah, I'll say it seems almost prescient in retrospect. It was on March 6th, I think, that you put out a statement talking about these initiatives that you were taking. Have there been any glitches? I mean, has it all gone pretty well, or have there been challenges in adapting to this new environment?
I don't think I could say there were any hitches or glitches that we didn't overcome within minutes or hours. We did survey our employee base a few days after we went live to check in with them on basics. Do you have connectivity? Is your machine working? Is there something you need? And then overall well-being. And the general response was the majority of the folks felt they were actually being more productive than they were at the office. They were asked for technology. And luckily, because we went to work from home so early, we still had access to items that are now hard to get. So we were able to get monitors out to individuals. We got extra periphery sent out to people. We helped guide them and advise them through work from home settings. Do you sit at the kitchen table? Do you sit at the couch? Do you sit at the coffee table? Like, where do you work from? We started learning quickly, like, what are people's schedules going to be like as schools started shutting down and kids are now at home? How do you navigate that? We've been coaching our leadership, our managers, how to have empathy during this period. And you can't expect the same things that you expected when things were normal. Even for myself, there are certain times of the day where I'm not available unless it's an emergency, just because I need to help and engage with the stuff at the house. We're all figured that out. It took us, I'd say, a week or so just to figure out what schedule should look like, what to expect from each other, and how do you kind of step away from the desk. Because the one thing when you work from home, it's really hard to disconnect from work because it's right in front of you. So I think we've done a decent job to get us to a point where that feels a little bit more normal. But I wouldn't say it's a glitch. It's probably just more of a, you have to figure out that process and normal as you get to it.
Yeah, as the CEO of a company that operates on a global basis, do you think that after things return to normal, if we, assuming we return to normal at some point, do you think this is going to make you rethink how you operate your company? I mean, do you think that this sort of distributed work from home workforce might be something that you'll have as a more regular part of your operations in the future?
It's probably early to say. There's some things that I think we are definitely considering. So we made a statement to the business back in January that we want to move to become a net neutral business in 2021. And 2020 would be the year of taking the steps to learn where can we make those changes in our business operations to get us there. You can, beyond just paying for credits, what else can you do to get ourselves there? So this exercise in this world that we're in now, we're definitely learning that we can still conduct business and provide significant value to our customers by being virtual. So we've had, in the last week alone, myself, I've had, over 5 or 6 CIO meetings and pitches that normally would result in me flying to a city or a country with a few other folks with us. And obviously the carbon footprint you create and then the dollar spend you're doing is significant. And it seems like at this stage that we can still get the same results that we would have otherwise. In fact, I think I can conduct more meetings at this point by not traveling because I'm not spending time in air or in a cab or commuting than I could have before. So productivity is definitely higher, and access to meetings and availability is higher. So we have to reflect after this and say, Our business has always been in office first, which I think will still remain as our mantra. We think face-to-face collaboration and interaction is pretty important. I'm definitely missing that. I'm a guy that walks the floor every day and spends 40% of my time talking and engaging with folks. That gets a little difficult to do remotely. But I think we'll look at our customer engagement and say, we've always been travel first. Can we revisit that statement and examine when do we travel? Do we have to travel? It's great that everybody's testing out all the remote connections between GoToMeeting, RingCentral, Zoom, Teams. Hopefully this brings strength to those vehicles as well going forward. And globally, not just for us, but everybody can revisit how much we're spending our time in the air and how much can we conduct virtually. So I think there will be some hard decisions we make as a business coming out of this, more for the benefit of the environment and our expense line. But I think we still want to look to engage with our teams face-to-face as much as possible.
Well, meanwhile, business continues, and I want to turn to some of the business of Litera. In my introduction, I described Litera as a document automation company, but I'm curious, as the company has kind of developed in recent years and moved in some different directions in different years, what's your kind of elevator speech version of what you do? How do you describe what Litera is?
I would say we're a document-centric software company. We are looking to develop software that empowers lawyers to really focus on what matters. And more importantly, we want to build software that changes how lawyers leverage technology. We've always been a document-centric business. All the brands that have come together have always been document-centric in some fashion. We're now moving from point solutions into proper workflows. And we believe we can really improve a couple of things. So the first thing I look at is, can we make the first draft that the end user creates as close to final as possible on day one? That's that plays into our Litera desktop story. Can we collaborate, negotiate, and litigate documents in a much more efficient manner? And that goes into our transactional litigation workflows. And then finally, can we create a auditable trail for closings and signature management that doesn't exist today in a very global fashion? So long as we remain document-centric and end-user focused, I think we can keep building this business out, and we don't try worrying about labeling ourselves as to which workflow we're doing, because we really are expanding our coverage, every quarter at this point with innovation and acquisitions. That so long as we stay document centric at the heart of what we do, I think we're safe. We're not going to become a billing software company. We're not going to become a CRM. But we do believe anything that touches a document is in our realm.
And I'm not sure that everybody knows the history here, but what we're currently calling Litera is kind of took its present form around 2017, right? I was thinking, I think I first met you in August 2017 at ILTA, when you announced the combination of four different document technology companies at that point: Litera, Microsystems, XREF, and the Sackett Group. And all backed by this $100 million equity investment from K1 Investment Management. So can you just describe that for our listeners? What happened at that point, and why did it happen? What was the goal of bringing together those different companies?
Yeah, I think the story really starts in early 2016. At that point, I was the chief operating officer for Kino Cozy, here based in Chicago, a large legal IT integrator and support desk. And prior to that, I was actually a lawyer at some point. So having to interact with technology in
right, you were an IP lawyer, right?
Yeah, it's been in my world now for a little bit. And then at Kino, really seeing how lawyers and end users interact with different technologies and the struggles they have and the support volumes and the integration issues. It just didn't seem right. It seemed like it could be better. So K1 at the time was looking to enter the legal technology space. And Microsystems was on the table as a first acquisition target. So I came on board, and Microsystems was acquired July of 16, XREF soon thereafter, and I became CEO after that. And we kind of got these brands just because they were available at the time, and then sat down in early 17 to say, what's the story going to be? What are we trying to do as a business? And the clear vision was, we've got to fix the document drafting lifecycle. It's built of disparate solutions. Lawyers have to go from ribbon to ribbon, toolbar to toolbar to get things done, and it's just inefficient. And that's typically where Microsoft Word is crashing on individuals. So we look back at the market to see what's available, and Litera and the Saka Group were also at that time looking to do something in this space. So we made those acquisitions and started bringing the brands together right before ILTA with the announcement. And we spent 6 months from that point until about February integrating the businesses and the products, and launched. The first product we launched was Clause Companion, which was in, I think, January, February of 18, which was the first in-word clause bank that allows lawyers to store content, share content, and KMs to push content down. And the reason behind that was really my own use case. I used to have a file on my desktop that had all my precedent in it. And that's the first place I would go to look for something. I'd Control F and look for something. And I think every lawyer has that folder on their desktop. I felt if I could bring that folder into Microsoft Word and make it more searchable, shareable, and reusable, it'd be safer and more efficient. A month after Clause Companion came out, we launched Litera Desktop, which was our view of how drafting should be. Single ribbon, 15 buttons. It allows you to create documents, so forms, templates, doc automation. It has the clause library, moves into proofreading. We have 14 attributes of proofreading, and then a lawyer can do document repair, single button fixes for fonts, numbering, citations, define terms, cross references. We could fix all those with single buttons, and then comparison. Comparing documents is critical workflow for lawyers, and then metadata cleaning. So we're able to offer this all within a single unified ribbon, and launched that in Q1 of 18, and we saw great success in the last couple of years around it, to the point we now have over 60,000 end users using Litera Desktop out of our 600,000 end users in totality. And we think that's a go-forward product and go-forward workflow. Most CIOs at this point will say, Litera Desktop, we get it. We'll get there. It's just a matter of when. There's other priorities on the tech stack, and we're in the queue, but we feel like we've solved that, and we continue to innovate there. And our recent acquisition of Best Authority kind of strengthens our position of being a best of breed platform. So that was the initial story behind doing this acquisition strategy and roll up.
So really focusing on the whole kind of workflow, the whole life cycle of the document drafting process.
And the key for us was doing it right. So I remember standing up in front of the CIOs at ILTA in 17, just saying, most of this market has experienced some M&A in the last decade, and it hasn't gone that well. And we wanted to leverage our knowledge around M&A activity and integration of software companies and do it the right way. So we've been steady. We've been pretty deliberate in our approach of bringing products together. We haven't forced anybody to leave something to go to something else. We've taken our time to make sure that if someone was to move from one product to the go forward, it's as consistent and smooth as possible. And so I think all those has given us the ability to keep doing this type of work going forward. And we're fortunate enough this past summer to do more activity in M&A, and again right now. So I feel like we've built up a good brand around our ability to execute. The industry is giving us the patience to make a couple mistakes here or there, but we try to make very minimal mistakes. And we hope to keep doing that going forward.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment. But first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. And now, let's continue this week's interview. You mentioned your acquisition of Best Authority, which, as it happens, it was just announced today on the day that we're speaking. It's March 26th as we're recording this, and it was just this morning that you announced this. Best Authority is a well-known tool in the legal world, pretty widely used tool, very specific in what it does, insofar as it creates a table of authorities in a legal brief. And I know that you already had a table of authorities tool of your own. So what prompted you to acquire Best Authority?
The primary driver is probably a similar one to why we looked at Workshare in summer of 19. As Litera Desktop became more and more of a go-forward path for law firms, there's always roadblocks that come up to that. There's passionate end users that want to use a single product, and even if the end result is better than that current product, there's still loyalty to that brand and to the feature functions that those products provide. So that was a big driver to bringing Workshare into the family, was to say we recognize that the comparison features of Workshare or the meta cleaning features that Workshare brought are pretty passionate to certain end users. If we remove that barrier and say that's now part of the offering, maybe more folks would be open to taking the workflow Litera Desktop as a standalone. And we saw positive reactions almost immediately from that acquisition this past summer. Best Authority is the same way. We, in the last 4 to 5 months specifically, there's a good amount of the marketplace that's looking to go to Litera Desktop, but felt that their litigators couldn't leave Best Authority or that table of authorities tool behind, and didn't feel like having 2 ribbons still. Our end goal is having 1 ribbon. Our table of authorities, while we felt was on the right path, is probably still on its own, 12 months away from being a head-to-head competitor to the feature functions that Best Authority has. So then you get into that conversation of buy versus build, and then you get in the conversation of, well, we want to buy best of breed, not platform. Because we believe that best of breed can be a platform, this was an easy opportunity for us to look at. And once you open up conversations with Levin and James, the timing worked out for both sides fairly well. And we're able to bring another product into the fold that can continue the Litera Desktop story, continue to provide the end user with the tools that they want and the features and functions they're used to, but still get the benefits of single vendor, single support, single renewal that you get from a platform.
What is that best of breed versus platform debate? I mean, is it people saying that if I want a product to do something well, I should just buy the standalone version of that product and not try and get it as part of a suite of products? Is that the thinking behind that?
I think there's a general notion out there that a platform is never going to be as good or provide as much functionality as 5 best of breed products that make up the sum of that platform. And at this point, I think where we sit is we say we believe our platform is a best of breed, and it's got critical workflows and functions built into it. There's always going to be innovative startup technology that shows up, and we believe that that's inherently important to not just our space being in legal, but generally in software. You always want new technology to come up to push us forward. We're now the size and scale of a business where we're able to build pretty quickly innovation, and if we can also work hand in hand with law firms to bring up new technologies and kind of skunk that work together versus independently. So we feel pretty defensible, and we don't agree that a platform is or is always less than the best of breed products. We think really a platform can provide greater value, and we want to keep doing that, but it requires making very minimal mistakes along the way and making good investments. I think Best Authority is a good investment. It's got, like you said, really good market share. 92% of the top 100 firms in the U.S. use it, and it can just further solidify that Litera Desktop is a sum of best of breed products, and as a standalone platform, is a best of breed platform.
So last summer, you went off in what I don't know might look to some as a slightly different direction insofar as you acquired within a month of each other. You acquired both Workshare, the UK company, and then Doxley, the startup that Haley Altman had started a deal management platform. How did you see those acquisitions as fitting within your roadmap and your goals for Litera?
So Workshare, so what happened was in May of 19, there was a transaction of ownership here at Litera. So K1 transacted the business to HG Capital out of London. And during that transaction, I got to see what a business has to go through on a corporate M&A or corporate buy-sell situation. And super paper-driven, email-driven, wet signatures. I had lawyers showing up at random offices wherever I was that given day to sign something. And that's the norm. And that's, I think, that's been accepted for a very long time as how a deal occurs or how a transaction occurs of any size or scale. So when we looked at Workshare after that transaction, we saw, okay, we're gonna work to get an asset that can give us comparison and meta cleaning consolidation. But on the heels of that, there's a product called Workshare Transact that is trying to solve for this. We felt pretty excited. So after we bought Workshare, my view is on M&A, we don't like to just dabble. We want to quickly become a known leader in the space. And on the heels of acquiring Workshare, we saw Doxley was also available. Both were having great traction in their own geographical markets or own critical workflows that together, the future product could be one of the few, if not only, solutions that can provide a global rollout and cover almost every single transaction that a law firm may want to engage in. So we met with Haley, and that deal we closed as well. The great story around Doxley was pretty much from meeting to closing was almost 10 to 12 days. We used the Doxley platform to close the deal. We received closing documents within minutes or an hour of closing the transaction. I saw quickly what the results of a good platform can do versus what the norm was. I think sometime in August, I realized what we just did. In technology and in software specifically, there's a few key attributes you look at it. How do you disrupt an industry? So is it human driven? Is it prone to error? Is it paper driven? Is it expensive? And all of those things are yes when you deal with transactions. They're expensive. There's often waste involved in the process. Human intervention is high. Significant paper involved. It's like that's a definition for why you would want to disrupt something. So by being able to get two well-known assets to bring them together and to build upon those going forward, we feel really excited about. We've had really good traction in 2019 and the second half of the year, and we're looking forward to what the future brings. But we're definitely heads down in making sure that the combined product does everything we want it to do and that it meets the demands of the market.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I was actually looking back at what I wrote at the time of that, and I had just to quote myself, I said in the space of roughly a month, Litera has gone from having no transaction management technology to having two of the leading platforms, and platforms that span both the U.S. and European markets. That was a pretty interesting move on your part. I've known Haley pretty much since her days of starting her company, I think, and she's been a guest on this podcast, and she continues on with you. I know working with you still, and the product. You're now calling it Litera Transact, the kind of the merger of the Workshare Transact and Doxley is now Litera Transact. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, we're using the Doxley infrastructure and code base and bringing over in due time the critical Workshare Transact workflows that existed and building upon that. But we did retain the Litera Transact name as a go forward.
Yeah. Another way in which you were in the news this week with relevance to Litera Transact is that you have said earlier this week that you're offering that you've kind of created I guess what you call a light version of this that you're offering at no cost, so that for 6 months for those who are impacted by this crisis, so the deals can go on without having to resort to the old-fashioned ways of wet signatures and couriers and all of that to get it done.
Yeah, I think it hit me last week a lot, and a little bit end of the week before that, just speaking with my cohort of peers and folks in private equity and deals, what they were still going through. They were still having couriers show up, even though they're gone work from home or they're self-quarantining. As lawyers, as business owners, people are still showing up to their doorstep to get something signed. And we don't want there to be delays in the economy. So if we can help support a safer environment to get something signed, executed, closed, we want to do that. It's very rare in software, especially in legal software, that you feel like you can do something that has an impact beyond improving the lawyer's day-to-day. I feel pretty humbled that we have that opportunity in front of us with the technologies that we've acquired. And I'm proud of the team coming together in the last week to build this opportunity internally with the software, with our team supporting it, with marketing to get the message out. And we're hopeful that people take advantage of it, even if for 1 or 2 deals they need help with. Let's get the software in your hands, and hopefully you can conduct it in a much more safer way than you would have without it.
And anybody who's listening to this can find out all about that on your website, of course. So this is maybe a 2-part question, which is, before let's sort of go backward a couple of weeks before we got to where we are right now with the situation that we all find ourselves in, and wondering, what had you been thinking? What's the roadmap? What's the future for Litera? That's the first question. Then maybe the second part of that is that are you having to rethink any of that in light of what's happened over the last couple of weeks, and does that change your thinking about where you're headed?
We've been fortunate to now have a board that routinely wants us to just look at the picture in front of us and reassess priorities. So the plan going into this year, we were looking to drive Litera Desktop from where it is today at 60,000 end users to 100,000 end users. We want to double the amount of folks using the transaction management tool. And sitting here now, I don't think our targets haven't changed. We'll have to reevaluate expectations as we see what really happens to this industry in the coming month or so. We're still seeing activity be high on requests to look at technology, review it. We do anticipate there being a little bit of a delay in buying net new. I think the scrutiny for net new technology will be there for the short term and potentially medium term. As far as roadmap, we were looking to have a pretty big year around innovation and driving our technology forward in new ways. Obviously, giving a glimpse of that with best authority and kind of where we want to head. I think historically, the last couple of years, we've been known as a transactional focused software vendor. And I think there's more to our story than that. And we want to make sure that comes to fruition very soon. So some of that could get slower. There's some opportunities we were looking at in the M&A space, and we'll yet to see if those are still going to be available as we move forward in the coming months. I think internally our innovation is still on track. What's interesting is when you get developers and product and QA folks to work from home, they're typically the most productive individuals you'll get working from home because their distractions from the office kind of go away and they can focus in on the work they have and the tasks they have in front of them. So there is a good chance our innovation actually picks up a little bit on the product roadmap perspective. So I think the areas that we probably have impact are potentially our inorganic activities around M&A and potentially how quickly we get software into the hands of the end users. But right now we haven't seen any significant concerns around that. The areas we're learning about quickly is, how are law firms going to, if they need to, in a remote setting, deploy technology where they maybe in the past been able to be hands-on with equipment or hands-on with training? What's that going to look like? I'm sure there'll be a pause for a short period of time just to let people settle into new normal. But at some point, we're going to have to figure out how to get back to that new normal of business as usual. So I think we'll work hand in hand in that with our customers. Most recently, we've been building an adoption team of lawyers and paralegals that can now work remotely with other lawyers that are still practicing to help them with technology. And I think that's an area we'll focus on quite a bit. We're also pivoting and seeing ourselves as a potential gap filler in the marketplace. As trade shows and events and conferences have gone to zero, there's an appetite for the marketplace to still get together. We're creating a day-long industry event in April. That'll be 100% virtual with panelists and speakers, not about Litera, but about the industry. And I think all we're going to do is set up the vehicle to conduct that event. We've also decided to launch what we're calling Litera TV, which you'll be hearing about either today or tomorrow, which will be Litera facing out. We'll be every day giving some sort of information around products, how-tos, tips and tricks. If folks are looking to get trained in certain software, we'll provide that all remotely and virtually. This day and age, I want to make sure our team is feeling that they can contribute. And then more importantly, on the other side, as customers get to normal, they're going to look for things to do. And I think we can fill that gap with education, with learning, and with networking. So we're going to try to become much more content focused in the short term, which will have some long-term benefits for the industry.
That's interesting. I know that you've already, over the last couple of years, you created The Changing Lawyer, which is kind of an online publication, and also awards that recognize innovation and changes in the legal industry. Do you think we are facing kind of permanent change right now? I mean, do you think this is going to change the practice of law, the legal industry in some fundamental way in terms of what we're going through right now?
I hope so. Right. I think in software, if you look at all the vendors that are really trying to push the needle at this point. So if you look at ourselves, you look at Clio, you look at Casetext, you look at all the vendors that are creating software that is SaaS, that is hyper focused on the end user and the practice of law. I think we're all hopeful that we'll see some good movement in the industry. I think the movement we've seen in the last 12 months has been great. The appetite is growing. The restrictions that law firm general counsels have on moving to a cloud-based SaaS solution has, I think, inhibited a lot of innovation from occurring. So hopefully our customers' clients will recognize that this potentially could be the new normal, and they've got to evaluate what kind of rules and regulations they put on the practice of law when they hire outside counsel. All of that can only go to better the service of law. This, while it's a once-in-a-generation type activity, you never know. This could become something that, as a planet, we realize in more oftentimes than not going forward. So we have to be prepared for more remote workforce. We have to be prepared for a disparate operation. We have to be prepared for an on-prem server not being available, but a cloud-based solution is available. So I don't think it's a flip of the switch, but I think the conversations will start in earnest here in the coming months around how do we build a long-term business operation as a law firm that is resilient and efficient and scalable and innovative and isn't harbored by potentially some archaic views of data storage and things like that. So we're not going to push that. It's not our space as a technology provider to push that conversation, but I think it's one that the market will inherently have to talk about on their own at some point here soon.
Avaneesh, I've been asking you a lot of questions. Is there anything you wanted to talk about before we wrap up today, or anything else you wanted to mention?
I think we cover a good amount, and I appreciate that. I think at Litera, I would say we're pretty proud of where we are and excited about the future for the space that software can play in legal. I've been really excited for the last 12 months, specifically working with a good amount of CIOs that want to engage in really leapfrogging where practice is today and where it can go. And we look forward to doing that. Hopefully this new normal is short for all of us, but if it is long term, we're going to continue to engage with the marketplace as much as we can everywhere. This week, obviously, Litera was in the news quite a bit. We're doing a lot of work to keep moving our business and brand forward. We're trying to keep our teams engaged and motivated, which we want to engage and motivate the industry around us. And I think at the size and scale we're at today, we want to be viewed as, the grown-up in the room that's helping folks out where we can. So hopefully the market can take advantage of some of the technology we just released at no cost. Hopefully many folks can take part in the day-long conference we have coming up for the industry. And then as folks look to learn more and get engaged with software, hopefully they can take advantage of some of the webinars we're putting out pretty consistently going forward. So we're here. We're here for the industry, and we're hoping that we can continue to be a strong partner going forward.
Well, we'll be looking forward to more details on that conference and on Litera TV as well. Avaneesh, thank you very much for taking the time to be part of LawNext today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob. I really appreciate getting together today. And again, it's health and safety for you and your family.
Likewise for yours. Let me just say thank you one more time to the sponsor who made today's show possible. My Case, with thousands of customers, is a trusted practice management solution helping lawyers across the country run organized, efficient, and successful law firms. Try it at mycase.com for free. And as always, a big thanks to Ben Ambrogi for producing and editing the show. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi.